She called me by mistake, thinking I was the married man she'd been having an affair with for 2 years. And before I could stop her, she was on her way to expose him. The twist? I let her do it, because 5 months ago, I found out my own wife cheated on me 16 times.
My name is Ethan Cole, and up until about 5 months ago, I was a solo pastor at a mid-sized church in a southern city. Big enough to have a skyline, but small enough that everyone knows the best barbecue spot without needing Yelp. I gave my heart and soul to that congregation for nearly a decade. Weddings, funerals, hospital visits, baptisms, you name it, I was there, Bible in hand. But this isn't a story about church life. This is a story about a phone call. A wrong number, really, but it turned into something much bigger, something almost poetic. When you're a solo pastor, one nasty little side effect is that your phone might as well be a second limb. It rings, you answer it. Doesn't matter if you recognize the number or not. Could be someone's grandma in the hospital or a member's cousin going through a crisis. You just pick up. Old habits die hard. So earlier this evening, my phone rings. I just walked through the front door with a sack of takeout from Max Burgers, a local joint that's as close to heaven as I can get these days. I was tired. I was hungry. And for once, I didn't want to talk to anyone. But my phone buzzed, and like muscle memory, I answered it. "Hello?" I said, half expecting someone to tell me they needed prayer or a ride to the ER. Instead, I got this overly chipper, unfamiliar voice. "Hey, what are you up to?" Now, I didn't recognize her voice, but I assumed maybe it was someone from my old congregation, maybe someone's daughter or granddaughter or niece. I couldn't exactly keep track of every person I'd ever met in my years of ministry. Not much, honestly. I just walked in with some food. How about you? She giggled like we were old friends. "I'm hanging out with Kendra right now." "Great," I said. "Hey, I'm sorry to ask this, but who am I speaking with? I don't recognize your voice, and I have no idea who Kendra is." The line went quiet for a moment, just a beat too long. Then came the attitude. "Ethan, don't play dumb. You know exactly who this is. It's Jessie." That name hit me like a dodgeball to the face. Not because I knew her. I didn't. I swear on every gospel in the Bible, I had never met a woman named Jessie in my life. But she said it like we just had brunch together that morning. I gave a nervous laugh. "Well, Miss Jessie, I hate to break this to you, but my name isn't Ethan. At least not the Ethan you're looking for. And I definitely don't know any Jessie or Kendra." She didn't miss a beat. "Darren, you are so full of it." "Sorry?" "You left your ringer on again, didn't you? And now you're scared your wife's going to hear us talking. You're acting brand new, and this isn't funny." Now listen, I know a person unraveling when I hear one. Her voice had changed, less playful now, more demanding, more angry. And I started to realize what I was in the middle of. I'd been mistaken for a married man named Darren, who had apparently been cheating on his wife with this woman Jessie for 2 years. And Jessie had finally had enough of being the other woman. "I want to come over there and tell her myself. I'm done with this crap. I'm going to knock on your door and wake her up and tell her everything. I'm sick of hiding." It was at that moment that I could have hung up, could have corrected her again and gone about my evening. But I didn't. I hesitated, because somewhere deep in my chest a spark lit. Not out of spite or mischief, out of pain. 5 months ago, my wife of 10 years, Claire, confessed to cheating on me. Not once, not twice. 16 times over the course of our marriage. Different men, different cities. Some names I never even heard before she said them. The betrayal wasn't sharp and sudden. It was slow, corrosive, like rust on a foundation I thought was made of stone. And when I found out, there was no Jessie knocking on my door, no phone call, no warning, just a folder on our shared laptop and a cold admission that tore my world in half. So when Jessie said she wanted to show up and tell someone the truth, I didn't stop her. "You know what?" I said, leaning against the kitchen counter with my burger cooling in the bag. "That sounds like a great idea. Go wake her up. Knock on that door and tell her everything. She deserves to know." There was a moment of stunned silence on the line. I don't know if she thought I was bluffing or if it finally hit her that she had the wrong guy. But then I heard it. The telltale click of a car engine starting in the background. "I'm leaving now," she hissed. "Okay, Jessie. See you soon." And I hung up. I stood there for a moment, letting the silence soak in. Somewhere in my city, Jessie was speeding toward a house that didn't belong to me, ready to blow up Darren's life. And for the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt since Claire's confession. Peace. Because Darren's wife was about to find out the truth, and she deserved that. Every woman does. Every man does. Betrayal doesn't just hurt, it changes you. You start to question everything. Your worth, your instincts, your memory. It's like someone rewrote your past with invisible ink, and now you're seeing the truth under blacklight. Jessie had no idea she dialed the wrong number, but somehow it was the right call. Because while I didn't get justice for myself, maybe she'd deliver it to someone else. Maybe another broken soul wouldn't have to find the truth on a hard drive. I sat down, opened my burger, and took a bite. It tasted better than it had any right to. The burger was half gone when the first wave of what just happened hit me. I'd just sent a complete stranger on a warpath to expose another man's affair. And it felt right. Not noble, not righteous, not even particularly smart. But it felt right. I didn't know Darren, didn't care who he was, but I knew the wife. Not her name, not her face, just the role, the title. The person asleep in that house, trusting a man who'd been playing with her for years. And I guess that's what made it so easy, because 5 months ago, I was her. After Claire's confession, people kept asking me the same 2 questions. How did you not know? And why did she do it? As if betrayal always shows up in obvious ways. It doesn't. Sometimes it's small things. A colder hug, a missed call, a sudden interest in privacy. It creeps in, and you want so badly to believe everything's still okay that you lie to yourself harder than they ever could.
And as for the why, hell if I know. Claire said she was lonely, that she felt like I gave more attention to the church than to her, that maybe part of her wanted to destroy something just to feel something. She cried, apologized, offered therapy, a reset button, and new vows. But 16 affairs? That's not a mistake. That's a pattern, a life choice, a goddamn side hustle. I left the house 3 days after the truth came out. I stayed with an old seminary friend for a while, then found a 1-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just quiet. I resigned from the church 2 weeks later. I couldn't stand in front of a congregation and preach forgiveness when I couldn't even look at my own face in the mirror. That was the end of the old Ethan Cole. And now, here I was, sitting alone in a dim apartment, eating cold fries and basking in the fallout of someone else's affair. There was something cosmic about it, like the universe had decided to run its own sting operation and drafted me in as an accidental operative. After I finished eating, I put the trash away and sat in the living room, letting the silence stretch. I imagined Jessie pulling into Darren's driveway, stomping up to the porch, rage bubbling under her skin. I imagined her pounding on the door until the porch light flicked on, and Darren's wife, half asleep and robe-clad, answered. Then came the fireworks, screaming, crying, maybe a slap or two, maybe broken dishes, maybe just a quiet closing of a door while Darren stood there, caught like a deer in headlights, watching the world he built on lies start to burn. I didn't feel bad, not one bit. In fact, I felt more human than I had in months. It was late, past midnight, when my phone rang again. Same unknown number. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then answered. Hello? She was crying. You're not Darren, are you? No, I'm not. Oh God, she said. I actually went there. I knocked on her door. I told her everything. And? She didn't even look surprised. She just stood there. Quiet. Said thank you for telling me. And closed the door. I didn't say anything. He was hiding behind her the whole time, wouldn't even look me in the eye. He called me crazy, told her I was lying, but I showed her the texts, the pictures, everything. He tried to grab my phone. I slapped him. Hard. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was honest, real. She laughed too, shakily. You're not mad at me, are you? For what? For dragging you into this? I shook my head, even though she couldn't see it. You didn't drag me into anything. I picked up the phone, and maybe you called the wrong number, but maybe I needed to answer it. She was quiet for a moment.
"What's your name?" she finally asked. "Ethan." "Ethan," she said softly. "I'm sorry for yelling at you earlier." "No need," I said. "You were trying to find the truth. That's never the wrong mission." Another pause. Then, "Did someone cheat on you too?" I stared at the ceiling. "Yeah, my wife. 10 years. 16 different guys." "Oh my God." "Yeah." She said she was lonely. I wanted to feel wanted. Jessie was quiet again, and then I heard a lighter flick and a soft inhale. "You smoke?" I asked. "Only when I feel like the world just fell apart." Then I get it. We talked for almost an hour. She told me how she met Darren at a business mixer, how he claimed he was separated, how she fell hard, too hard. Then she found out he wasn't separated at all, but by then she was in too deep. "He made me feel alive," she said, but it was all fake, every damn bit of it. I didn't judge her. I couldn't. Pain doesn't come with a clean label. It just arrives, makes itself at home, and dares you to fight back. By the end of the call, she said she was driving back to her place alone, said maybe she needed to take a break from men altogether. I told her that sounded smart. She asked if we could talk again sometime. Not like that, but just talk. I said sure. After we hung up, I sat there a long time, staring at the wall. A wrong number, a woman pushed too far, a man exposed. And me, somewhere in the middle of it all. Not quite a hero, not quite a bystander. It was strange how healing sometimes arrived in the oddest packages. Maybe Jessie would be okay. Maybe Darren's wife would finally walk away. And maybe I, Ethan Cole, ex-pastor, ex-husband, accidental accomplice to righteous chaos, was starting to come back to life, one unexpected phone call at a time. The next morning, I woke up before the sun cracked the sky. Old habits, I guess. Years of early Sunday sermons and hospital visits had wired me like that. I stood in the kitchen, sipping coffee that tasted too bitter, staring out at the dull gray light of a new day. I kept thinking about that phone call with Jessie, how strange it was. Two strangers, bound together for a few hours by someone else's secrets. If I believed in faith the way I used to, I might have said there was a reason for it. Maybe some divine course correction. Or maybe it was just dumb luck that landed me in the middle of Darren's mess. Still, it was the first time in months I didn't feel completely alone. Around 9, I got a text. "Hey, thanks again for listening last night. Hope you're doing okay today." I stared at it for a moment, then wrote back, "Doing better than I expected. You?" "Hungover on truth and Diet Coke."
I smiled. We didn't talk again for a couple of days, but I kept thinking about her. Not in a romantic way, not even close, but like someone who showed up at just the right moment. A fellow passenger on this wreck of a train called heartbreak. When we finally spoke again, it was a Wednesday night, and I was flipping through Netflix with no real intention of watching anything. She called, and I picked up. "Still alive?" I asked. "Barely," she laughed. "Do you ever feel like your whole identity just got hijacked?" "Every day." "Darren's wife left him," she said suddenly. "Packed her bags the next day. She's staying at her sister's in Chattanooga." "Good," I said. "He tried to call me," she continued. "Blocked him, deleted every photo, every message, all of it. That must have been hard." "It was, but I needed to do it. He didn't love me. He loved the secret." That hit me harder than I expected. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I know the type." She didn't ask for details. She never pressed me. That was part of what made her easy to talk to. She didn't pry. She just listened, then offered her own bruised pieces in return. We talked a few times over the next couple of weeks. Nothing heavy. Just two people sorting through the broken glass of their old lives. It was weirdly comforting. Like talking to someone who spoke the same language of disappointment. Then, one night in early March, I got another unknown number call. My stomach twisted for a second. It felt like déjà vu. I answered. "Mr. Cole?" "Yes." "This is Officer Ramirez with the Metro Police Department. I'm calling to ask a few questions about a recent incident involving a woman named Jessica Hollins and a man named Darren McConnell." My spine stiffened. "Okay." "Mr. McConnell is filing a complaint for assault and harassment. He claims Miss Hollins showed up uninvited, struck him, and damaged his property." I closed my eyes. "Are you serious?" "Yes, sir. He also mentioned a phone call that led her to believe he was cheating. We're trying to understand the sequence of events." I hesitated. She called me by mistake. She thought I was Darren. She was upset. I told her she had the wrong number, but she didn't believe me at first. Eventually, I played along. There was a long pause. So you impersonated Mr. McConnell? I didn't impersonate anyone, I said firmly. She assumed I was him, and I let her believe it. That's not a crime. And if you ask me, the only crime here is that he lied to her for 2 years and got mad when it blew up in his face. The officer cleared his throat. We're just trying to get a clear picture, sir.
I understand, but if Darren wants to make this official, tell him he's going to have to explain to a courtroom why his mistress had a full archive of proof that he was cheating on his wife, and why did she have to find out from a total stranger? There was another silence. Then, thank you, Mr. Cole. We'll be in touch if we need anything further. And I never heard from them again. Jesse texted me the next day. Guess who tried to press charges? He's really out here trying to play victim. I know, he won't win. Liars hate sunlight. Thank you again for not hanging up. I stared at that text for a long time. Not because it was romantic. It wasn't. But because it reminded me how much a single decision, a single phone call, can ripple through lives. I used to believe that God spoke in big moments, burning bushes, thunderclaps, divine revelation. But now, I think he speaks in mistakes, in missed calls, in tired voices just trying to be heard. I didn't go back to preaching. That door was closed. Too much pain in the pulpit. Too many ghosts in the pews. But I did start writing again. I'd always kept journals, sermon notes, little devotionals here and there. After all this, I began writing the full story down. Not just mine, but Jesse's, Darren's, the strange chain reaction set off by one wrong number. I didn't have any grand takeaway, no moral of the story tied up with a bow. But I did know this. Lies rot in the dark. And sometimes it takes a stranger to throw the switch. Over the next couple of months, life didn't get easier, but it got different. I got used to the silence in my apartment. I got used to eating alone, watching old movies, and waking up to no one. But that wasn't necessarily bad. Silence, I found, wasn't the enemy. Sometimes it was the only thing that told the truth. Jesse and I still talked from time to time. Not every day, not even every week, but when we did, it was simple, honest, no strings. She told me she'd started therapy. She said she finally told her mom everything about Darren, about how ashamed she felt, how it took a total stranger's voice on the other end of the line to snap her out of it. I told her I understood, because I did. One Saturday morning in April, I was sitting at a cafe near the old church. I hadn't been in that part of town in months. I didn't miss it. The building still stood there, white brick and a sagging cross, like a relic of someone else's life. While I sipped coffee, I saw a woman walking up the sidewalk, looking unsure, holding a toddler in one arm and a diaper bag on the other shoulder. She stopped, looked up at the church doors, and then turned to walk away. I didn't know her. I didn't need to. But I got up, walked across the street, and said, "Looking for someone?" She turned, a little startled. I was hoping to talk to a pastor. I didn't know where else to go." I looked at the building, then back at her. "There's not a pastor here anymore." "Oh," she said, eyes lowering. "But I used to be one," I added. "If you want to talk, I've got time." She hesitated, then nodded. We sat on a bench across from the church, and she told me her story. Broken relationship, an absent partner, exhaustion, the weight of motherhood on her shoulders. She just needed someone to tell her she wasn't crazy, that she mattered, that she was still allowed to want a good life. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Useful. Not in a stage and microphone kind of way, just one human listening to another. After she left, I didn't feel called to return to the pulpit, but I did feel called to something else. Presence. Quiet, grounded presence. I started volunteering at a local family crisis center, just helping out, driving people to appointments, listening when no one else would. It didn't fix my broken marriage. It didn't erase Claire's betrayal, but it made me feel real again. Then, sometime in May, Jessie called. I hadn't heard from her in almost a month. "Hey," she said, voice soft. "Got a minute?" "Always." "I ran into Darren." I froze. He was at the grocery store. I almost didn't recognize him. He looked small. I don't know how else to describe it. What did he say? Nothing, she said. He couldn't even look at me. I walked right past him. You okay? I was. I didn't feel rage, didn't feel heartbreak, just nothing. Like he was just another aisle in the store. That's huge, Jesse. Yeah, it is. She paused. Are you still writing? Every day. You ever think about turning that story into something bigger? I'd been thinking the same thing. The wrong number. The moment that accidentally connected two strangers and unraveled a lifetime of secrets. I don't know if anyone would believe it. She laughed. It's 2025, Ethan. People believe lizard people run banks. I think they can handle a wrong number that turns into emotional justice. I laughed too. She was right. That night, I sat down and started shaping the story. Not a sermon, not a confession, just telling. Truth, from one man's perspective. A reminder that sometimes the most important moments in your life don't come from your plans, but from the detours. It was never about revenge, not really. Revenge is fire that eats its own smoke. But the truth, that's something else. That's light. Claire texted me not long after. I hadn't spoken to her since the divorce papers were finalized.
I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Again. I know that doesn't change anything, but I hope you're doing okay. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because I finally didn't feel like I owed her anything. Forgiveness doesn't always look like a reunion. Sometimes it just means letting go and refusing to let the past set the temperature for your future. And as I sat there, watching the cursor blink at the bottom of my story, I realized something. That wrong number, it wasn't a mistake. It was the beginning. By early June, the story was done. I'd written every word of it the way I lived it, honestly, without a filter, without polish. Not to sell a book, not to get clicks, but because it felt like something that needed to exist. A story about betrayal, yes, but also about unexpected connection, brokenness, and the strange ways healing begins when you're not looking for it. I titled it, Wrong Number, Right Wake-Up Call. I shared it with a few friends, then eventually posted it on a community writing site, not expecting much, but it didn't take long for it to start spreading. People began emailing me, strangers, women mostly, telling me their own stories, their own Darrens, their own Jessies. Some were angry, some were hurt, but most of them were just tired. Tired of carrying secrets that weren't theirs. Tired of forgiving people who didn't deserve it. Tired of pretending everything was fine. I didn't become an influencer. God knows that's not me. But the story struck a nerve, and I started to realize something. This wasn't just about infidelity. This was about the truth, about the weight of emotional labor, about how many of us, men and women alike, are walking around with wounds that never got cleaned, just covered up. I got one message that stopped me cold. It was from a woman named Emily, and all it said was, I was the wife, not your wife, the wife. Darren's. My name is Emily. Thank you. I stared at that message for a long, long time. I wrote back, carefully, respectfully. I told her I didn't know her name, that I had never met her husband, that all I'd done was answer a phone call from a stranger and let her believe she was talking to someone else. She replied, You let the truth come out. I needed it. I would have stayed forever if no one had told me. I know she only came because she was angry, but I'm grateful. That call saved me. And that's when it all came full circle. It's a weird feeling, knowing you played a part in breaking someone else's illusion. But sometimes illusions need to break. They're not protected. They're prisons. And when someone opens the cell door, even by accident, that's not destruction. That's deliverance. Jessie and I met once, just once. She was passing through town on her way to see her sister in Savannah and asked if I wanted to grab a coffee. We met at a little diner near the interstate. She looked different than I expected. Stronger, more grounded. We talked for 2 hours, laughed more than I thought we would, swapped more stories, some funny, some brutal.
When we stood up to leave, she hugged me like someone who understood exactly how broken I'd been. I think you picked up that phone for both of us, she said. And maybe she was right. We didn't stay in touch after that, not because of anything bad, just because we didn't need to anymore. That chapter was closed. We had walked each other to the end of that particular road, and now it was time to take separate exits. I'm okay with that. I still volunteer, still writing, still live alone, and most days I'm good with that too. Life's quieter now, but it's clearer. The kind of clear that only comes after you've been forced to start from zero. Claire moved out of state, got a new job. We haven't spoken since that last text. I wish your peace, even if I never got the closure I wanted. I guess sometimes peace is closure. I don't tell many people the story out loud, not because I'm ashamed, but because it's the kind of thing that sounds made up when you say it out loud. She called the wrong number, and you just played along? And then she showed up at the guy's house and exposed him? Yep, all of it. And in that chaos, and that mistake, something strangely right happened. Not revenge, not triumph, but the truth. Truth doesn't always come with fanfare or perfect timing. Sometimes it shows up in a broken voice on the other end of a late-night phone call. Sometimes it's born from confusion, anger, and heartbreak. But when it shows up, if you let it in, it changes everything. So if you ever get a call from a number you don't recognize, answer it. It might just be the beginning of your freedom, or someone else's.
If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like, subscribe for more, and share it with someone who'd appreciate it. Thanks for watching.